You stand in the center of the boardroom, the air freezing against your skin, sharp with the metallic scent of old money and ink. The chairman slides the termination papers across the mahogany, his eyes flat and dull, seeing you only as a liability to be excised. But beneath the sterile chill of the air conditioning, another temperature rises, a suffocating, predatory heat radiating from the darkened glass of the corner office. The man who owns this skyline has been watching every second of your betrayal, with a silence that vibrates with fury. This is the moment your professional composure shatters, not from the chairman's dismissal, but from the absolute weight of the gaze fixed upon you. While the board sees a consultant they can fire, he sees property they tried to steal. While they celebrate your destruction with scotch and smug laughter, he is calculating the cost of their insolence. You feel the who hurt you energy pulsing through the walls, a low-frequency vibration that makes the hair on your arms stand up. The hunt has already begun, and you are not the prey being discarded. You are the prize being reclaimed. The familiar frame of your success is gone, subverted by a primal truth. What happens when the man who owns the building decides he also owns the woman they just tried to destroy? Prepare to surrender to the claim. The boardroom smells of expensive cologne, old money, and the sterile, metallic hum of an air conditioning system that seems intent on freezing the blood in your veins. You've spent 3 years as the most elite consultant in this city, a ghost in the machine of high-stakes mergers. But today, the machine has turned its gears toward you. The mahogany table is polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the jagged lines of the discrepancies you found in the merger. Documents you thought were your leverage, but now realize were a carefully constructed trap. The chairman, a man whose silver hair and tailored suit usually command respect, looks at you with eyes that contain no warmth, only the flat, dull shine of a shark. He doesn't offer a seat. He doesn't offer an explanation. He simply slides a single, heavy sheet of paper across the dark wood. It's your termination, effective immediately. The silence in the room is heavy, a physical weight pressing against your chest as you realize the men you once advised have spent the last hour plotting your professional execution. Your security clearance was revoked 5 minutes ago, the chairman says, his voice a low, jagged blade that cuts through your remaining dignity. Your personal belongings have been packed. Security is waiting to ensure you find the exit without further incident. You look around the table, searching for a flicker of guilt in the eyes of the other board members, but you find only a wall of cold indifference. They aren't just firing you. They are erasing you. They are stripping away the armor you've spent a decade building, leaving you exposed in the very room where you once held the power of life and death over their portfolios. The discrepancies you uncovered were never meant to be fixed. They were the price of admission for a darker deal, one that required your silence or your destruction. Because you refused to look the other way, because your integrity was a barrier to their greed, they have decided to break you. You feel the sharp sting of humiliation rising in your throat, a heat that contrasts with the icy atmosphere of the suite. You are the best at what you do, and yet, in this moment, you are nothing more than a liability being discarded like a broken piece of equipment. The chairman leans back, a faint, cruel smile touching his lips as he watches you process the finality of the situation. He enjoys this. He enjoys the way your hand trembles, just a fraction, as you reach for the paper. He thinks he has won. He thinks that by removing your badge and your title, he has removed your value. But as you stand there, the glass walls of the boardroom reflecting the gray, indifferent sky of the city, you feel a different kind of pressure building. It isn't coming from the board. It's coming from the office at the end of the hall, the one that has remained dark and silent throughout this entire proceeding. The office of the Alpha CEO, a man who hasn't been seen in a board meeting for months, yet whose presence looms over this company like a predatory shadow. You've felt his eyes on you before, in the lobby, in the elevator, a gaze that felt less like a professional observation and more like a hunter marking his territory. As the chairman gestures toward the door, signaling the start of your walk of shame, you realize that your mind is still trying to calculate a way out, a logical countermove to this betrayal. But your body knows the truth before your mind can process it. The professional world is fading, dissolving into the background, leaving only the cold reality of the hunt. You are being pushed out of the light and into the darkness, where he waits. You gather the single folder of your personal notes, the paper crinkling in your grip, and turn toward the double doors. The chairman's laughter is a soft, mocking sound behind you, a final insult to the career you've sacrificed everything for. You have to survive the walk through the office you once commanded, under the stares of people who will smell the scent of failure on you. But as you step into the hallway, the air changes. The pressure drops. The board thinks they've thrown you to the wolves, but they've forgotten who the alpha is. Your heart hammers against your ribs, not just from the sting of the betrayal, but from the instinctive recognition that the real trial is only just beginning. The door to the boardroom clicks shut, and you are alone in the corridor, a fallen queen waiting for the shadow to fall. The heavy glass doors of the boardroom swing shut with a finality that echoes like a gavel in the sudden silence of the executive hallway. You are no longer the elite consultant whose signature could greenlight a billion-dollar merger. You are a trespasser in your own life. The walk to your desk is only 50 paces, but each step feels like wading through deep, freezing water. The open-plan office, once a hive of digital humming and professional ambition, falls into a rhythmic, predatory silence as you pass. Heads that once bowed in respect now tilt with a cruel, newfound curiosity. You can feel their eyes tracking the single cardboard box tucked under your arm, a pathetic vessel for a decade of expertise. The scent of the office has changed. It no longer smells of success and high-end espresso. It smells of the hunt. Your former subordinates, the ones you mentored and shielded from the board's erratic whims, suddenly find their monitor screens fascinating. They won't look at you. They don't want the contagion of your failure to rub off on their own precarious careers. You realize that in this glass and steel ecosystem, loyalty is a luxury no one can afford once the alpha has supposedly turned his back. But it isn't the alpha who did this. It was the vultures in the boardroom, and yet the shame feels entirely yours. Your professional armor, the charcoal blazer and the sharp heels, now feels like a funeral shroud. You reach your mahogany desk, the one with the view of the bay you thought you'd earned for a lifetime. A security guard, a man whose name you used to know, stands 2 feet away. He doesn't speak. He doesn't have to. His presence is a ticking clock, a reminder that your time in this world has expired. You reach for the crystal paperweight, a gift from a grateful client, but your fingers tremble. The vibration starts in your knees and travels upward, a physical manifestation of the foundation crumbling beneath you. You are being erased in real time. The digital files you spent months perfecting are already being wiped from the server. The emails you sent are being archived for evidence. "Leave the badge on the desk," the guard says, his voice devoid of the warmth he showed you yesterday when you brought him coffee. You unclip the plastic rectangle, the key to your identity, and set it down. It looks small and insignificant against the vast expanse of the desk. You gather the last of your things, a fountain pen, a framed photo of a city you never had time to visit, and turn toward the elevators. The walk of shame is nearly over, but the air in the lobby feels miles away. You feel exposed, a raw nerve pulsing in a room full of spectators. As you approach the bank of elevators, the gold-plated doors of the executive lift slide open. This is the car reserved for the gods of the firm, the one you usually avoided out of a misplaced sense of professional humility. But today, you don't care about rules. You step inside, desperate for the doors to close, desperate to hide your burning face from the whispered judgments of the floor. You hit the button for the lobby, your breath coming in shallow, jagged hitches. Just as the sensors begin to pull the doors together, a hand, large, tan, and marked by a heavy signet ring, stops them. The doors retract, and the atmosphere in the small, mirrored space shifts instantly. The air grows heavy, charged with a static electricity that makes the hair on your arms stand up. He steps in. The Alpha CEO, a man who exists more as a legend than a person in these halls, fills the space before you can even look up. He doesn't press a button. He doesn't look at the floor numbers. He simply stands there, his massive silhouette blocking the overhead light, casting a long, cool shadow over your trembling form. The scent of sandalwood and rain, sharp and masculine, replaces the sterile office air. You are trapped in a golden cage with the only man more dangerous than the ones who just fired you. Your body knows the truth before your mind can process it. The elevator is moving down, but the hunt has only just begun. The elevator begins its descent, but the sensation of dropping has nothing to do with gravity and everything to do with the man standing inches from you. He does not speak. He does not offer a platitude or a glance of pity. Instead, he simply exists in the space, a mountain of tailored wool and primal intent that makes the mirrored walls feel like they are closing in. You are staring at the reflection of your own shoes, noticing a scuff on the leather that you didn't see this morning, because looking up would mean acknowledging the absolute weight of his presence. Suddenly, his arm moves. It is a slow, deliberate motion that cuts through the static air. His hand, large and radiating a heat you can feel through your blazer, rests on the wood-paneled wall just beside your head. He isn't touching you, but he has effectively caged you. The movement is a silent barrier, a claim staked in the 4 seconds it takes to pass the 40th floor. You are pinned between the cold mirror and the furnace of his body, and the professional world you just lost feels like a distant, flickering memory. The silence in the elevator is more demanding than any interrogation you've ever faced in a boardroom. It is a heavy, rhythmic thing, timed to the low, steady beat of his breathing. You can feel the vibration of the elevator cables humming through the floor, a mechanical shiver that mirrors the instinctive trembling in your own knees. You try to steady your breath, to regain the icy composure that made you the most feared consultant in the city, but your lungs refuse to cooperate. The air in here belongs to him now. Every inhale you take is filled with the scent of him, sandalwood, rain, and a faint metallic edge of pure power. He watches the floor numbers go down, his profile a sharp, unrelenting line of shadow against the gold trim. You wonder if he was in that dark office, watching the board dismantle your life. You wonder if he authorized the termination, or if he is simply here to witness the final disposal of a discarded asset. The uncertainty is a physical ache. You want to demand an explanation, to scream that you found the rot in his company, but the words die in your throat. Under his gaze, your titles and your grievances feel small, almost irrelevant. You're shaking, he says. His voice isn't loud, but it is deep, a low-frequency rumble that vibrates in your chest more than it registers in your ears. It isn't a question. It's an observation of a physical fact. He isn't asking if you're okay. He is noting the physiological response of prey in the presence of a predator. You swallow hard, trying to find your voice, but the elevator floor seems to tilt beneath you. The numbers on the digital display are plummeting toward the lobby, toward the public humiliation that awaits you behind the glass doors. Yet you realize, with a jolt of terror, that he hasn't reached for the door open button. In fact, he hasn't moved his hand from the wall. He is looming over you, his shadow swallowing your smaller frame, and you realize that he isn't letting you leave. The board might have fired you. They might have revoked your clearance and told you to vanish. But the man who actually owns the air you are breathing has other plans. Therefore, the exit you were so desperate to reach suddenly feels like a trap you aren't being allowed to enter. You are being held in a golden suspension, caught between the betrayal of the men above and the unknown intent of the man standing over you. The elevator chimes as it nears the ground floor, a bright, cheerful sound that feels violently out of place. You expect him to step back, to resume the posture of a distant executive as the doors open to the crowded lobby. Instead, he leans in closer, the heat of his chest nearly brushing your shoulder. The pressure of his shadow is absolute, a silent command to stay still, to wait, to endure. You realize in this moment that your independence was an illusion. You didn't lose your power today. You simply realized who has always held it. The doors begin to slide open, revealing the bright, chaotic world of the lobby. But his hand remains firmly planted, blocking your path to the life you thought you knew. The elevator doors part with a smooth, mechanical hiss, revealing the expansive glass cathedral of the main lobby. Usually, the space is a choreographed dance of high-end ambition, But today, the rhythm has fractured into something jagged and predatory. You see them immediately. The flash of camera lenses, the aggressive stance of local reporters tipped off by a whisper from the boardroom, and a perimeter of security guards who look less like protectors and more like a firing squad. They are waiting for the disgraced consultant to emerge, for the woman who stole from the firm to be cast out into the bright, unforgiving light of the street. The humiliation you feared is no longer a private shadow. It is a public spectacle. You feel the instinct to shrink back, to find a corner of the mirrored elevator to disappear into. But the man behind you has other plans. The alpha's hand finally moves from the wall, but it doesn't return to his side. Instead, it finds the small of your back. The contact is electric, a heavy, searing weight that anchors you to the marble floor. It isn't a gentle touch. It is a proprietary one. His palm is broad, his fingers splaying slightly against the silk of your blouse, sending a surge of heat directly to your spine. In an instant, the terror of the crowd is eclipsed by the sheer, overwhelming reality of his physical claim. He is steering you forward, not as a victim, but as a possession. As you step out of the lift, the lobby erupts. The shouting of questions and the rhythmic clicking of shutters create a wall of noise that threatens to buckle your knees. The security team moves in, their hands reaching out to grab your arms, to fulfill the chairman's order of a forceful escort. But before a single finger can touch you, the man at your back speaks. It is only one word, your name, but he delivers it with a low, resonant authority that cuts through the chaos like a physical blow. The entire room goes silent. The reporters freeze mid-sentence. The security guards recoil, their faces pale as they realize who is standing directly behind the woman they were told to humiliate. The power dynamic in the room flips with a violence that leaves you breathless. The air, which a moment ago felt thin and hostile, now feels heavy with the alpha's scent and his silent, terrifying fury. He doesn't look at the press. He doesn't acknowledge the guards. He simply stares at the back of your head, his hand tightening slightly on your waist, a gesture that tells everyone in the building that you are under his absolute protection. The board might have signed your termination, but he has just vetoed their existence with a single look. You realize that the walk of shame has been transformed into something else entirely, a procession. The chairman is standing near the revolving doors, his face twisting from a smug grin into a mask of pure confusion and rising dread. He expected to see you crying, shielded by a cardboard box as you were shoved into the rain. Instead, he sees the man who owns the very ground he stands on, holding you, with a familiarity that borders on the scandalous. The alpha's gaze finally shifts to the chairman, and for a second, you see the raw, predatory intensity that made this man a legend. It is a look of cold, calculated promise. It says that the board has made a mistake that cannot be undone. The "who hurt you" energy radiating from him is so thick it's suffocating. He isn't protecting your career. He is protecting his property. You feel a strange, dizzying relief washing over you, a surrender to the fact that you no longer have to fight this battle alone. But as he guides you away from the main exit, bypassing the cameras and the prying eyes, a new question takes root in your mind. Why is he doing this? Why would the most powerful man in the city stake his reputation on a woman his own board just branded a traitor? You are being led away from the world you knew, and as the private service doors close behind you, the silence of the corridor feels like the beginning of a beautiful, terrifying end. The private service corridor is a world of brushed steel and hushed, expensive silence. The chaos of the lobby, the shouting reporters, and the chairman's panicked expression are swallowed by the thick, soundproof doors. You are no longer in a public space. You are in the veins of his empire. His hand remains on the small of your back, a constant, searing reminder of who is in control of your movement. You don't ask where you're going. The time for questions died in the elevator. Your body is navigating by instinct now, moving because his presence demands it, leaning into the warmth of his palm because the rest of the world has turned to ice. He leads you to a discreet, unmarked elevator, his private lift. There are no floor buttons inside, only a biometric scanner that glows a soft, predatory red as he places his thumb against the glass. The ascent is silent and dizzying. You watch the digital display skip past the executive floors, past the boardroom where your life was dismantled, rising higher until you reach the very peak of the skyscraper. When the doors open, you aren't in an office. You are in his sanctuary. The penthouse suite is a sprawling expanse of glass, dark leather, and shadows, smelling intensely of him. That signature scent of sandalwood, rain, and something deeper, something primal. The air here is different. It's pressurized, heavy with the weight of absolute authority. The city below looks like a collection of toy buildings, insignificant and distant. You stand in the center of the room, still clutching the folder of your personal notes, feeling like an intruder in a god's inner chamber. The alpha doesn't head to a desk or pick up a phone. He walks directly toward you. The light from the floor-to-ceiling windows catches the sharp lines of his face, the predatory focus in his eyes never wavering. He stops inches from you, his shadow completely enveloping your frame, forcing you to tilt your head back just to meet his gaze. Without a word, he reaches out. His fingers, calloused and warm, find the lapels of your charcoal blazer, the last vestige of the elite consultant who walked into that boardroom this morning. He doesn't pull you closer. He simply begins to slide the heavy fabric off your shoulders. It's a slow, deliberate movement that feels like a ritual. As the blazer falls away, you feel a strange, terrifying sense of exposure. That jacket was your armor, your professional skin. By removing it, he isn't just helping you relax. He is stripping away your corporate identity, peeling back the layers of the person the board just fired to find the woman underneath. His fingers graze the silk of your sleeves, a brief electric contact that makes your breath hitch in your throat. He tosses the blazer onto a nearby leather chair as if it's nothing more than a discarded husk. You are left standing in your thin blouse, the cool air of the penthouse raising goosebumps on your skin. But the heat radiating from him is more than enough to keep you anchored. He steps even closer, his chest nearly brushing yours, his height forcing you into a position of natural submission. You can feel the low-frequency vibration of his breathing, a rhythmic pulse that seems to sync with your own racing heart. "You don't need that armor here," he says, his voice a dark, velvet rumble that vibrates through the very floorboards. "In this room, the board doesn't exist. The merger doesn't exist. There is only the truth of what you are to me." The statement hangs in the air, thick with a promise you don't yet understand. You look around the sanctuary, the minimalist art, the deep shadows, the sheer scale of his isolation, and realize that this isn't a place for business. This is a cage. A beautiful, high-altitude cage designed for a very specific kind of bird. You feel the weight of the price for this protection settling on your shoulders. He hasn't asked for a debrief. He hasn't asked for the files. He is looking at you as if you were the only thing of value in a building worth billions. The relief you felt in the lobby is beginning to morph into a new, more intimate kind of tension. You have been rescued from the vultures, but you have been brought to the eagle's nest. As he reaches out to brush a stray lock of hair from your face, his thumb lingering on your jawline, you realize that the professional world hasn't just ended. It has been replaced by something much more demanding. The silence of the penthouse is broken only by the low, distant hum of the city, a sound that feels like a fading heartbeat. He doesn't move away after touching your jaw. Instead, he steps into the space where your personal boundaries used to exist. He guides you toward a heavy, obsidian-topped table where a single laptop sits open, its screen glowing with a cold, blue light. On the monitor, a grid of security feeds shows the boardroom you just left. The men who fired you are still there, pouring glasses of celebratory scotch, their postures relaxed and arrogant, unaware that the ceiling is about to collapse on their heads. "They think they played a masterful hand," he says, his voice dropping into that terrifying, low-frequency growl that makes your pulse skip. He stands behind you, his presence a wall of heat against your back, his hands resting on the edge of the table, effectively caging you against the desk. "They thought they could use the discrepancies you found as a smokescreen for their own embezzlement. They figured by discarding you, they could bury the evidence of their greed under the weight of your ruined reputation." He leans down, his breath warm against the shell of your ear, sending a shiver of primal recognition down your spine. He explains the truth with a clinical, predatory coldness. He didn't just happen to be in the elevator. He has been watching every keystroke, every meeting, every whispered betrayal. He allowed the board to proceed with your termination not because he didn't care, but because he needed them to commit the act. He needed them to expose their true nature in a way that was final and irreversible. He used you as the bait, watching from the shadows as the vultures circled, waiting for the exact moment they sank their claws into you, so he could snap the trap shut. The moral tension in the room rises until it's a physical pressure. You realize that while the board betrayed you for money, the man standing behind you used you for power. You were a pawn in his grand strategy, a piece moved across the board to elicit a specific reaction from his enemies. The realization should make you angry. It should make you want to walk out of this sanctuary and never look back. But as his hand moves from the desk to the back of your neck, his fingers curling slightly into your hair, the anger is drowned out by a much more visceral emotion. He describes the punishment he has prepared for them, and it isn't a legal filing or a corporate reprimand. It is a systematic dismantling. He has frozen their personal assets, leaked their private communications to the federal authorities, and prepared a series of lawsuits that will ensure they never hold a position of power again. His voice is thick with a possessive fury, a low rumble of who hurt you energy that makes it clear he isn't doing this for justice. He is doing it because they touch something, someone, that belongs to him. You were never just a consultant to them, he whispers, his thumb tracing the sensitive skin behind your ear. You were a threat they tried to neutralize. But to me, you are the only asset in this entire building that matters. I let them think they could take you from me, just so I could show them what happens to men who reach for what is mine. The word mine vibrates through your body, a heavy, absolute claim that shatters the last of your professional independence. You aren't a high-level consultant anymore. You are the catalyst for a king's reckoning. The competitive tension breaks as you realize there is no fight left for you to win. The board is already dead. They just haven't stopped breathing yet. But the cost of this victory is your total absorption into his world. You look at the screen, seeing the chairman laugh at a joke, and you feel a dark, twisted sense of satisfaction, knowing that his world is about to end. Yet, as the alpha's grip on your neck tightens just enough to remind you of his strength, you understand the trade you've made. He has destroyed your enemies, but in doing so, he has ensured that you have nowhere else to go. There is no resume, no next firm, no independent future. There is only the shadow of the man who turned a corporate betrayal into a primal hunt. You are the prize he has reclaimed from the wreckage, and the reckoning has only just begun. The blue light from the monitors casts long, flickering shadows across the obsidian table, turning the Alpha's penthouse into a high-tech war room. He doesn't move away. He stays anchored behind you, his chest a solid wall against your shoulder blades. You can feel the steady, rhythmic thrum of his heart, a contrast to the frantic energy on the screens. On the central display, the boardroom doors, those heavy mahogany barriers that felt like the gates of a tomb an hour ago, suddenly burst open. The celebratory scotch in the chairman's hand sloshes over the rim of his glass as a team of men in dark, tactical suits enters the room. These aren't the building's standard security. These are his personal enforcers, the silent shadow army that answers only to the man holding you. You watch, mesmerized, as the arrogance drains from the chairman's face. It happens in slow motion. The confusion, the indignation, and finally, the cold, soul-crushing realization of who sent them. One of the enforcers steps forward and places a set of legal documents on the table, the same table where your termination paper once sat. But these aren't severance agreements. They are federal warrants and immediate seizure orders. The chairman tries to stand, his mouth moving in a silent protest that carries no weight, but a firm hand on his shoulder forces him back into his seat. The man who thought he was a king is being reduced to a common criminal in the span of 30 seconds. "Look at his eyes," the Alpha whispers, his voice a low, satisfied purr against your ear. That is the moment he realizes that his money, his connections, and his lies mean nothing. He thought he could operate in the light, but he forgot that I own the darkness. You feel a dark, forbidden thrill coursing through your veins. It's a primal satisfaction, watching the men who tried to destroy your life being dismantled with surgical precision. One by one, the board members are stood up, their wrists secured behind their backs with black zip ties. The elite status they spent decades cultivating is evaporating under the cold glow of the fluorescent lights. The alpha's hand slides from your neck to your waist, pulling you back so your spine is flush against him. He wants you to feel every second of this victory. He wants you to witness the exact moment their power dies. On the screen, the chairman is being led out of the room. He looks small now, his expensive suit rumpled, his silver hair disheveled. He looks like a man who has just realized he stepped on a landmine while trying to pick a flower. He glances toward the camera, toward the hidden lens he didn't know existed, and for a brief second, it feels like he's looking directly at you. But he isn't seeing a consultant. He's seeing the void that has finally swallowed him whole. The competitive tension that has driven your career for the last 10 years, the need to be the smartest, the fastest, the most prepared, suddenly snaps. There is no one left to compete with. The board is gone. The firm, in its current form, is a corpse. The alpha has won the war before the first shot was even officially fired. Therefore, the professional battlefield you've lived on has been wiped clean, leaving only the two of you in the silence of the clouds. You realize that this wasn't just a corporate takeover. It was an execution. He didn't just save you. He cleared the world of everyone who dared to stand between him and his prize. As the last of the board members is escorted into the service elevator on the screen, the monitors go black. The blue light vanishes, leaving the penthouse in a heavy, natural twilight. The silence that follows is absolute, a weight that settles over your shoulders like a heavy cloak. You are still standing in his cage, your blazer gone, your career in ruins, and your enemies destroyed. The adrenaline that kept you upright begins to ebb, replaced by a deep, visceral awareness of the man who is still holding you. You are the only thing left in his empire that hasn't been broken. And as he turns you around to face him, you understand that the real battle wasn't with the board at all. It was always with him. The screens are dark now, the blue flickering light replaced by the amber glow of the setting sun bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling glass. The adrenaline that sustained you through the boardroom betrayal and the lobby ambush begins to drain away, leaving a heavy, hollow ache in its wake. You are standing in the silent center of his world, miles above the streets where your old life just ended. The silence is absolute, a thick, pressurized thing that makes the sound of your own breathing feel like a transgression. You turn slowly, your back leaving the cold edge of the obsidian table, to find him waiting. He hasn't moved an inch. He is a pillar of shadow and intent, his silhouette cutting a jagged line against the dying light of the city. He reaches out, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he is giving you every chance to run, even though you both know there is nowhere left to go. His hands, large and radiating a heat that feels like a physical brand, come up to frame your face. His palms are rough against your cheeks, the calluses on his thumbs tracing the line of your jaw, with a tenderness that is more terrifying than his fury. You should pull away. You should demand to know what happens to your career now that the board is in handcuffs. But as his touch anchors you, the words die in your throat. You are looking into the eyes of a man who didn't just save you. He dismantled a multi-billion-dollar power structure just to ensure you had no other choice but him. "The board is gone," he whispers, his voice a low, resonant vibration that you feel in your marrow. "The files are deleted. The world they tried to trap you in has been burned to the ground." He tilts your head back, forcing you to meet a gaze that is predatory, ancient, and utterly unwavering. You spent 10 years building a resume, an identity, a shield. You thought your value was in your intellect, in your ability to navigate their petty greed. His thumbs press slightly into the soft skin beneath your ears, a gesture of absolute possession that makes your knees feel like water. But you were wrong. Your value is here, in this room, at my side. You were never meant to be their consultant. You were always meant to be my prize. The weight of the claim settles over you, heavier than the charcoal blazer he stripped away. It is the realization that your independence, the thing you fought for, the thing you sacrificed sleep and relationships to maintain, was nothing more than a temporary state. You weren't climbing a corporate ladder. You were wandering through a labyrinth he designed, and he has finally decided the game is over. He tells you, with a calm, terrifying certainty, that you will never need a resume again. You will never have to prove your worth to a room full of silver-haired vultures or defend your integrity against the corrupt. Because from this moment forward, your only role, your only identity, is the one he grants you. You feel the relief of it first, a treacherous, honey-thick sensation of letting go. The burden of being the best, of being the shield, of being the one who always has the answer, begins to shatter against his dominance. It is the relief of the hunted finally being caught by the only predator strong enough to keep the others away. But beneath that relief is a cold, sharp spark of fear. Can you accept a life where your only authority comes from his permission? Can you exist in a world where the glass walls of this penthouse are the boundaries of your existence? He sees the question in your eyes, the flicker of the independent woman you used to be, and his grip tightens just a fraction. It isn't a threat. It is a reminder. The hunt is over. The claim is absolute. You are no longer a player on the board. You are the queen he has taken home. The amber light of the setting sun finally dips below the horizon, leaving the penthouse in a deep velvet indigo. The city lights below begin to flicker to life, a sprawling grid of millions of people who have no idea that the power structure of their world was decapitated this afternoon. But inside this glass sanctuary, the air is thick, still, and heavy with the scent of sandalwood and rain. You are standing in the center of a silence so profound, it feels like the atmosphere of another planet. The weight of your old life, the deadlines, the data sets, the constant, exhausting need to prove you were the smartest person in the room, is evaporating. It is a physical sensation, like a fever breaking. He moves his hands from your face to your shoulders, his grip firm and steady. He doesn't have to say another word about the board or the merger. That world is ash. He is looking at you not as a colleague or a consultant, but as the singular focus of his entire existence. You feel the heavy burden of your independence shattering against the absolute reality of his dominance. For years, you told yourself that your autonomy was your greatest achievement, that your ability to stand alone was your strength. But as you look up at him, you realize that independence was just another word for being unprotected. It was a lonely, cold place to live. The relief of letting go is a terrifying, honey-thick tide that pulls at your senses. You feel your knees finally give way, not out of weakness, but out of a deep, instinctive surrender to the man who has claimed your future. He catches you before you can fall, his arms wrapping around you with a strength that feels like a fortress. You are pressed against the fine wool of his suit, the heat of his body radiating through your silk blouse, anchoring you to the present moment. The who hurt you energy that radiated from him in the lobby has smoothed out into something even more intense, a quiet, proprietary calm. He has cleared the field. He has removed every obstacle. Now, there is only the two of you. He tilts your chin up, his gaze searching yours for any lingering spark of the woman who thought she could walk away. You find none. The fire of your ambition has been replaced by the steady, pulsing heat of his presence. When he claims your lips in a kiss, it doesn't taste like a corporate negotiation or a professional agreement. It tastes of victory and total unapologetic possession. It is the seal on a contract that has no expiration date and no exit clause. In that contact, you feel the final fragments of the elite consultant vanish, leaving behind only the woman who belongs to him. The city below, with all its noise and its petty betrayals, seems small and insignificant compared to the absolute reality of this room. You realize, with a clarity that vibrates through your soul, that you don't want to leave this shadow. You don't want to return to the bright, cold world of the glass offices and the silver-haired vultures. You want to disappear into the weight of his claim, to exist only where his gaze can find you. The surrender is complete. You have traded your name and your title for his protection and his shadow, and as he holds you against the backdrop of the darkening sky, you know you have never been more powerful than you are in this moment of total submission. The contract of your new life is signed in the silence of the clouds, and the hunt is finally over. You look out at the sprawling skyline, his arms wrapped around you like a living shield. The board is a distant, flickering memory of a lesser world, a group of small men who mistook their greed for power. The question remains, Was the betrayal of the board a tragedy, or was it the only way you'd ever truly be found? Perhaps you had to lose everything you built to realize it was never a home. If you feel the instinctive pull of the claim, subscribe to witness the next hunt. Surrender is the only path forward. Accept the dominance. Stay for the reward.